Welcome, everyone, to another episode of How to Be Happy podcast. This is going to be an awesome episode. I am here with Charmaine, aka The Love Lady, and we are going to jump right in. And I'm going to start by firing a question at you, a really important question, Charmaine. What is happiness, and where does someone start to find it?
Ah, Let me start with where does someone start to find it? Someone starts to find happiness within. I know it's so cliche, but we cannot find happiness outside of ourselves. So we're going to find happiness inside. Happiness, ooh, it's a feeling. It's a feeling, a delicious feeling, I will say, um, that allows for peace to be entered. So happiness comes from within, and it's just a knowing. It's not conditional as well. Happiness is not conditional.
So, I have recently, in the last 2 years, gone through this major life transformation. And one of the many things I've learned is that you have everything that you need to be happy within you. And that's a really, really hard concept for many people, including myself, for 47 years. For 47 years, I chased if I have a yacht, if I can make $1 million, if I can marry this woman, if I can get this girlfriend, right? It was always looking from outside. Where am I going to find love and happiness? And I have found, and it's a beautiful thing, that it's from within, right?
Yes, absolutely.
There's nothing outside yourself that can bring you happiness. Is that right?
It's absolutely right. I think we all have been, I think we are taught that somehow when we were younger, that things outside of us, like, and people teach us that very thing too. Like, do these things to make me happy. So when we realize that we have everything we need to be happy, it's just there, the other things outside of us are even sweeter. Like, we don't need those things, and when we have them it's even sweeter, but when we don't, it's just as sweet.
Yeah. And why do you think people look outside? I think partly it's because they don't know that it's internal, and partly because they don't like what's internal. Would you agree
Yeah.
with that?
Yes, and I think it starts with when we were young. Unfortunately, we were taught, and I don't want to blame everyone, our parents and our teachers and all of this, but I think there's some teachings that we're not good. We're not good enough. And so we strive for that goodness. And then there is you're good if you have this. You're good if you acquire this. You're better than. And so we keep striving, never looking within. And so I think it's something that has been fed to us, all of us. I don't think any of us are, exempt from this way of being. But then for those of us who are really searching for something bigger and better in life, we end up finding that we already had what we needed, and that we're already just as beautiful and loving and all of those things that we've been searching for outside of ourselves in within.
Yeah, so you mentioned the word blame, and that I think when I coach and when I speak, a lot of times people think that I'm blaming people, and
Yeah,
this has nothing to do with blame, right? This is about having a sense of awareness, because without awareness, you can't change. So what was modeled to me as a child? My father certainly didn't feel good about himself. So what did he use? He used buying $100,000 cars and wearing fancy suits and flying first class. He literally showed me love through money, because he thought that's how it would prove his worthiness. And I got a lot of that from him in my 47 years. I always thought I started companies based on how much money can I make, because if I make a bunch of money, I'll prove my worth. So yeah, I think a lot of kids unfortunately get that model for them, and it doesn't serve them, because like you said, we've got everything you need to be happy right inside of us right now, and we always have had it.
absolutely. We always have had it. And you said something very key. It's about awareness. Like, once we become aware of what's happening with us, we start to open up. I say, a lot of my getting to happiness, getting to love, getting to peace was not just being aware, but unlearning the things that I learned, um, in a honorable way, right? So there's no blaming. I'm not blaming my parents, but I'm trying to interrupt that pattern or behavior that taught me that I'm not enough, so that I can realize that I am enough and all of those other things that we were taught, right? To
Yes.
show love, because those things are fleeting anyway. What's
Yeah.
internal is not fleeting.
Yes. So, Charmaine, who are you? What do you do? And how did you get the name Charmaine the Love Lady?
Ooh, who am I? I'm, you know what? Honestly, I just say I'm Charmaine. Like that's just, there's just plain and simple. I'm just Charmaine. I'm just a being here. I think I am love. I am connected to everything and everyone. So it's really hard for me to, list that I am this, I am the daughter of this person and that. I'm just Charmaine, right? This journey of love and becoming the love lady, or some people say the love doctor. I am not a doctor. Um, this journey started a long time ago, over 12 years ago, intentionally, but probably a little bit before that, where I was just not happy. I wasn't sure that I understood love. And so I wanted to just unpack it. Like, what does it mean to love? And I remember seeing a very wise friend of mine, and he said to me, it's this journey is going to look ugly, Charmaine, but then it's going to be a beautiful thing. And so I thought, as long as I keep focused, like the thing you focus on gets bigger. So as long as I continue to like focus on love, I did not know where this journey was going to take me, but I literally wanted to turn every stone, from like couples love to my own love to my understanding of love, to not being afraid to look at every single aspect of it. And I don't want to sound like I was just some brave person walking around. I was scared a lot of times, but I was questioning every belief about love that I was ever taught. And somehow that led me to speaking about it in places that I never thought I would speak about love. And it just opened up more doors to people just wanting to hear about this idea and concept of love, because I think everyone wonders about it. Most of the time, first from a romantic standpoint, I realize, and then maybe family. So I wanted to experience the expansiveness of love. What does it mean to love myself and others well? That offers me peace inside, where I'm not singing and dancing so other people can be happy, but how can we sing together and we're all free and happy?
Yes, so that's awesome. So you've spoke at some high profile places. I'm not sure if you can share, but are you able to share some of the? Did
Well,
you
yeah, I think so.
did you speak at the Naval Academy?
I did speak at the U.S. Naval Academy for a few years, and that was a beautiful experience. I spoke to some midshipmen about the idea of love, and I think back to that, and I think, oh, I have even grown from there. Like if I could go back and speak again, it would be from a more expansive place. I've spoken at many schools, high schools, elementary schools, that sort of thing. I have spoken for a government agency as well. So I think I've been in some pretty cool places, and even overseas. I've spoken to young girls in Jamaica about
Yeah, I'm
love.
on. I just got back from there. Love that place. So
Yeah.
so Charmaine, what is love?
Ooh, I'm not going to be able to put it into words. I'm really,
So you gave a pretty good definition on the boat. We have a book club that we're in together, and we go on the boat and talk about these subjects, right? And you
yeah.
said something. Can you just share what you said that day about
What did
love?
I say that day? All right. So that was a few months
It was
ago.
months ago.
It was months ago. So here's what I will say, and then you may have to remind me of what I said. But it's really hard to put it into words the more that I experience it. And I was thinking this morning about love, and I thought love is this, I finally get it. I'm finally free, and those around me can be free as well, whether they know it or not. It's the ultimate, I get it. It's the ultimate seeing, like seeing things more clear than I ever have before. And accepting and awareness have allowed me to experience love. Like, I think my favorite quote is from Rumi, that talks about just removing love, like removing the barriers of love because it's already here. And I get that in such a humongous way now that it's hard for me to put into words what love is without boxing us in to a rote thing. And I started with a rote thing from a book that I love that set me on a path, a foundation, but I've expanded past that.
So I don't recall exactly what you said, but the book by Anthony DeMello, The Way to Love, which we all love that book, he talks about love is accepting another person or situation for the exact way it is and not the way we think it should be or the way that our past perceptions of that person think, basically forming an opinion based on the past perceptions. And
Yes.
I think he talks about like a tree or a flower. Like a tree doesn't provide shade to just certain people. The tree provides shade to everyone.
Yes.
So, but I love what you said about you used the word free, and I don't know if you used authentic, but that was the meaning of what you were saying. Is that could love really just be the freedom? Because I have found freedom in my life over the last 2 years. And what is freedom? Because I tell that to people, like I help you find freedom and happiness. And some people are like, what is freedom? Freedom is the ability to be yourself all the time, your authentic self. And who is your authentic self? It's who you were born as. And your imperfect parents and your imperfect caregivers kind of created filters that took that out of you. Not out of you, they put filters. It's still there and it's always there. So I think love is a lot to do with to get that freedom, you've got to love yourself. And it's
Absolutely.
a feeling of just taking care of yourself, right?
Absolutely, 100%. That freedom is taking care of yourself. I think it's the ultimate way of being that, there's just a burst inside of me as we're talking about this of yes, like everything you just said. And it's so hard to tell people, but it's in a practice that we get there.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
and
in the
here
practice of understanding.
and
Mhm.
this is a great segue to your bio, which I just pulled out a couple sentences that I just love. I'm going to read
Okay.
it. Like many others, I've come through a lot of pain, self inflicted and from others. She learned to stop breaking her own heart. With sheer will and learning from many brilliant teachers, mentors, her therapists, and coaches, she woke herself up from the illusions and painful patterns she was in. There is so much in there that we could literally do an hour podcast on, right? But
Okay.
I want to touch on a couple of things. The word self-inflicted. I
Mhm.
believe that 99% of all of our problems in the world, or 98, a huge percentage, are self-inflicted, right? We have these thought patterns from our broken caregivers that create us. The next word is that I underlined is breaking your own heart. So for 47 years, I told myself I wasn't worthy. I self-inflicted pain based on your next sentence, woke herself up from the illusions and painful. The illusion is that you said this earlier, you weren't enough. I felt like I wasn't enough. If you can
Mhm.
read my shirt, it says, no one can love you like you can. So all
Absolutely.
of our problems are self inflicted. All of our problems came from unmet childhood needs. But here's the beautiful thing that you and I have realized, and now we're sharing to the world and coaching other people on, is that just because you didn't get your needs met as a child and you're in a bad situation, you have a drinking problem, you have a shitty relationship, whatever it is, eating, smoking, gambling, you can change that because as an
Mhm.
adult brain, you can be aware of it and you can start giving yourself the love that no one else can.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, it starts with responsibility, and that's really, really hard because we want to blame everyone else. They did this, they did that, and maybe it happened. Maybe it did. But there is a power that you gain when you say, I'm going to take responsibility now. I'm going to take responsibility for my life. And I am going to, when I say stop breaking my own heart, if I keep going back to that thing that hurts me, I am breaking my own heart, not that thing or that person, right? It's me at this point. I need to take responsibility. If I put myself in situations that don't feel good and I can't be my authentic self, I need to take responsibility for that. I can forgive in a way, and forgiveness is a really big one too. But if I can forgive myself and others, then I no longer am living in this continual cycle of heartbreak. And so when I talk about not breaking my right, responsible, not breaking my own heart, it's let me start with being responsible. Let me start with offering grace and compassion to myself so that I can do it for others, right? We always go outside of ourselves first. We learn that. Like, I hear many people say, I can love other people better than I can love myself. And I just don't know how that's possible because whatever we have in here, we're going to give out there. There is no other way around
I
it.
I agree. If I asked you for 12 oranges right now and you didn't have 12 oranges, could you give it to me?
I'm going to give it to you.
I think there's one exception to that is I think people who don't love themselves can love their children because I think that's just an innate thing we were born with. But I think for the most part, it's really hard to love another human being if you don't love yourself. So back to the responsibility, I purposely wrote it like that because isn't that what responsibility really means?
Yes.
Your ability to respond, right?
Hmm.
Um, I had a conversation over Christmas with my mom, and she said, I was proofreading your website, bradchandler.com, and she says, I saw where you blamed yourself for the failed marriages and your children's behavioral problems. She was like, you weren't a cause of that. And I was like, yes, I was. I was like, do you not think that you were a part of every failed relationship? When I was in my marriages and when I was unwhole and broken, I didn't think it was my fault. It was always the blame of the other person. It's her
Hmm.
fault. She's causing it. But now I understand that whatever situation you're in, you've manifested it to some degree. If you've manifested to some degree, guess what? If you manifested your way into it, you can manifest your way right out of it. So that was a really huge point you made, Charmaine. Responsibility is important. You've got to take responsibility for your actions and where you are in life.
Yeah. It takes that song, It Takes Two, Baby. It takes two, baby. Yes, me and you, right? And so there's a book by Catherine Woodward Thomas called Conscious Uncoupling. And it's about, when you're uncoupling from your spouse. And she says, even if you believe that someone is 97% wrong, you still own your 3%. And so, whatever that percentage is, when we take responsibility for how we show up in life for ourselves first and then to others, and we're brave enough, because I do think you have to be brave and courageous around this thing because the world tells you to pretend, to hide, to, to not show up as your full self, but to conform to, I don't even know, like we're conforming to so many different ideas that we get all messed up. But when we really decide to courageously say, I'm going to be me, and I'm going to offer in that responsibility some grace and some compassion and some forgiveness first to myself. I'm going to really sit with these things. I'm going to really feel these things. Then I can get to a place of loving well, because that's all I really wanted to do. Was I wanted the ability to love well, to love everyone in my life well. But I couldn't do that until I learned about love myself and how to love myself well.
So for the people who are struggling, let's rewind like 15 years ago and put yourself in your position. Knowing what you know now, there's a lot of people watching this that are and listening to this that are really struggling and suffering. Right? What would you tell them? Like, what are the next couple steps they could take?
First, I think that there's hope. There's so much hope. I don't think that any one of us is more special than another. I think we all have the ability, and we can take responsibility for taking that one first step by saying, I'm lost. Like, I actually really don't know what I'm doing. And then I'm willing. Like, I'm lost, but I'm willing. The willingness to change for me was the door that opened. That was the key, like the willingness key. Let me unlock the door. Let me be willing to step in. Let me be willing to see the things that make me uncomfortable, and let me get some help, right? There's an idea around, some people have the idea around getting help as a sign of weakness, but it's a sign of pure strength to me. I think we're all extremely connected to each other. And I believe that we can't do this alone. And I think we're starting to live more and more in silos when we're all deeply connected. So I think it's first like admitting it to yourself. You don't need to proclaim to the world, hey, I'm lost. But then be willing to say, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to take one step at a time. I'm willing to give myself this grace and compassion. And I'm willing to get the support that I need around this.
So, Charmaine, the word illusion, I love that word, because it creates suffering, right? So your illusion, my illusion, for years and years and years, that created the suffering was that, on some degree, we weren't enough, right?
Mhm.
And that basically is what most people's problems boil down to. As Marissa Peer says, it's either you're not enough, you feel like you don't belong, and therefore you can't connect, or you'll never get what you want in life.
Mhm.
All three of those main categories and feelings are created from our childhood experiences. We use those as coping mechanisms to get through our childhood experiences. And then for most of us, unfortunately, they stick with us our whole lives. So isn't it a matter of, like, a huge part of happiness is you be willing to face the pain? So the truth, I tell this to people all the time, to get to freedom, you've got to move through the pain of the truth. So isn't that what you did? And maybe just speak a little bit about how, what illusion means to you, and the untruths, and how someone would know today if they're living in those untruths.
Yeah, uh, the illusion of life. You, as we sit here, I can guarantee you we lived a very different life as children, right?
Sure.
As a 44-year-old woman, growing up with my parents and grandparents was a completely different experience than yours. So my world looked very different. So I was living in an illusion around being a Black female, right? Which your world looks different, and but also other people. We all have this, like, we all come together in these worlds that none of it makes sense because we didn't have the same parents, we didn't have the same upbringing, and so somehow there was an illusion of separateness, first of all. And so I think what happened, what broke it for me, the first thing that helped me burst the bubble of illusion was the question of, is it true? Everything that I thought about, is it true? Am I willing to face the fact that if it's not true, am I willing to let it go? Or am I willing to hold fast to, I've got to still believe these things because this is how I was raised, or this is what I was born into? And that, is it true, as scary as that was at times, freed me. Is it true that I am this person, or that person is that person, this person? Is it true that this thing makes us divided, right? That is, once I like hit that, is it true? And that came from a teaching also from Byron Katie, who is one of my greatest teachers, I will say, along with many others. But once we question our beliefs, is it true? We can then let those things go. Because most of the time the answer is, it's not true. Is it true that I'm not enough? No, that's not true. Is it true that Brad and I can't sit here and be in communion with each other around love, peace, and happiness because we come from different worlds? No, that's not true. Right? And so let's free ourselves by being willing to face what's really true, not from a place of illusion or just wanting to hold on very firmly. Because what do you, and there is a scary part about, if it's not true, then where do I go next? So I don't want to be insensitive around it, but once you let go, there is a subtle peace that, oh, if I don't believe this anymore, I am free to be
Yes. Yes.
spaces that allow for others to come, and we can all be free together.
Yes. The truth shall set you free, right? I never knew how impactful that statement really was, but it's the truth. And I teach my clients and my followers that you literally can't suffer in life if you live in the truth. And if you're suffering, you have to just do what you did. Ask yourself, is this the truth? I'm not enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. I don't deserve a good relationship. I don't deserve a nice house. I don't deserve this promotion at work.
Mhm.
All of that, if you really ask yourself the truth shall set you free. Because what is the truth? The truth is that you were born, whether you believe in God or not, the universe or God brought you into this world, right? As this perfect human being. You still are at your essence this perfect human being. Do you behave perfectly? Do we behave perfectly? No, but it doesn't mean that we're still not this amazing person at our essence. And all of the suffering in the world is from people just not believing that truth.
Yeah, absolutely. It frees us. There is such a freedom when we don't believe those things that once kept us separate from ourselves first, because those things keep us separate from who we are too. Like that's where it starts. But then it connects us in a way with people in our lives that just fills us up even more. Like there's a feeling that I get when I am with you all, right? That I can't explain, but it's just look at that amazing human being that I'm getting to talk with as well.
Yeah, so you're talking about a group that we formed, and there's probably 5 or 6 of us, and we're all on this journey together, right? We're on this journey of what is this journey? This journey is we're trying to get better and better at self love, which will allow us to love everything else, because we are at the essence just love, right?
Yes.
That's all we are. We are literally pure love, and that's the truth. So when I hear people say like, "Well, my husband isn't affectionate," or "My husband's not the dancer. He doesn't like to sing." Go back to when you were 2 years old. Show me a child who's 2 years old who won't go up to a stranger, put their arm around, sing, dance out loud, um, kiss another person. Like that's who you are at your essence. You were made in your heart to sing and dance out loud, to hug other people, to have no prejudice. If someone takes your ball, 2 seconds later, you've forgiven them and you're playing with them, right?
Yes.
That's who you are. How many people can go to a bar or a dance place right now and dance and sing out loud and be their true self? Very, very, very few without the use of drugs or alcohol. And why is that? Because they're living in the lie that, oh my gosh, if this person judges me or says something, it's going to show that, yeah, I'm not enough.
Right.
And that takes away your ability to be free and authentic. And it just, all you have to do is change your thinking. You don't have to go out and run a marathon. You don't have to go build a factory in Zimbabwe. You just need to change your thinking. Everything starts and ends with your thinking.
And you know, I love that you said that, because what the idea of changing your thinking is to be in awareness of what you actually think. I
Yeah.
think we don't know what we're thinking of because we have so many thoughts running through our heads that when we're able to slow down and really see what we're thinking, and I know that sounds maybe like an oxymoron, but you have to know what you're thinking in order to get there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So if we were on this podcast 2 years ago, before I went through my transformation, and you said, Brad, if you were interviewing me and you said, Brad, do you have self-love? Do you love yourself? I'd be like, yeah, I love myself. And if you said, Brad, do you care what other people think? I was like, no. You know what the truth is, though? Those were lies. I didn't truly love myself, and I did worry about what people thought. So if you're sitting here thinking the same thing, like, I love myself, and I don't care what other people think, ask yourself a couple questions. What have your relationships been like throughout your life? Have they been from one rocky road to the next? Ask yourself, do you find yourself judging other people all the time? Do you find yourself judging yourself? Do you find yourself talking negatively to yourself on a regular basis? Do you participate in self-destructive behaviors? Do you drink too much, spend too much money, smoke too much, whatever it is, eat too much? Any of those things are signs that, so, because if someone would have said that to me 2 years ago, well, Brad, look at all your things. Because if you ask an alcoholic, someone if they're an alcoholic, you can ask them, hey, how does it affect your personal life, your business life, your health? Have you been in trouble with the law? And the patterns and the behaviors the results will show you, are you an alcoholic or not? It's the same thing if you love yourself. So ask yourself those things. And if a lot of those answers are no, I don't love myself, I promise you that every area of your life is negatively impacted. And when you can understand that you're pure love and that you're enough and get rid of those untruths, Charmaine and I are witness or proof here. Like the world changes. Like my eyes, I have a new set of eyes. I see the world completely different than I did 2 years ago.
Absolutely. And I think so many great points that you just made, Brad. And I believe that when it comes to self love, right, we always say, absolutely, I love myself. And I think when I first started this journey, I found this brilliant book by Bell Hooks called All About Love. And that was the foundation of where I started. I want to make sure that you understand that. But she lists she lists things like respect, care, open communication, um, some other things that she listed around love. And so I would use that as a barometer for myself on how I'm loving myself well. Am I showing myself respect? Am I being, when she says open communication, am I communicating with myself well? Am I caring for myself in a way that someone who loves themselves would? Am I, am I showing recognition for the work that I'm doing inside of myself instead of beating myself up? And so it was that barometer that I started to use, and in that it taught me, you know what, you're not loving yourself well. If you're being inauthentic in a space because you're not comfortable, you're not loving yourself well. So how do you? And so it's always like going back to the drawing board and saying, okay, so here's another point that I need to like, okay, here's another thing I need to work on. Oh, I did not, I wasn't honest. Love is honest, right? I believe that was one of the things that was listed. Now, am I being honest with myself and others? And so when I started to do that, it was like, oh, now I'm learning how to treat myself. And now I'm learning how to treat others with love, respect, and care because I'm giving it to myself first. It's really, it really kind of broke up this concrete foundation that was set where I was not loving myself well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was well said. Love the part about you don't love yourself if you're not being authentic. And here's one of the greatest things about the human body and mind is that we have built-in alarm systems that often people don't put the batteries in the smoke detector, or they just listen to it beep all day and don't do anything about it. But we, just like when you have a headache or you have a fever, it's your body's way of saying, hey dude, something's wrong, right? When you feel internal strife, when you are in a situation and you feel uncomfortable, like you said, and you're not your authentic self, when you go to a social situation and you've got to have 3 drinks before you can talk to someone, or you can't dance or sing, and your body gives you this like anxious feeling, that is the greatest thing in the world. People look at that and they beat themselves up and they're like, why am I feeling this? They'll never have another drink. Use that as a barometer to be like, something isn't right. Gabor Mate, one of my mentors, says upset is an opportunity for set up, meaning that anytime you feel a negative emotion in a relationship, it's amazing. An intimate relationship, it's the greatest place to heal unresolved trauma. When you feel those negative emotions, try to figure out where they're coming from, because that's your body saying there's something wrong inside yourself that you haven't settled. And if you can settle this, life's going to be way better.
Absolutely. And Gabor Mate, everyone needs to know this man. He is like our Einstein of today, I think. Yeah, and I think that self love is about really knowing the self, like really knowing you. You know how you get into a relationship with a person, romantic relationship, and you want to know all about them, what makes them happy, because we want to do the things that make them happy. We're leaning in because we
Yeah.
really like that person. What if we really leaned into us, not from a place of um, uh, I know this word comes out a lot, but narcissistic behavior, but really leaning into the joy of who you are, the joy of what it, dating yourself, kind of like when we're just so excited to be with someone. It's like, I'm so excited to be with you. And now I get to learn you. I get to now see, Charmaine, who you really are and what really makes you happy. And then you will know intuitively, I'm not going to that place because it doesn't make me feel good. It has nothing to do with those people. It's got everything to do with me. How do I keep myself safe and protected as I live this life? And that, I think, is when we talk about hmm, things like social justice, I think that is social justice for all of us. When we can just walk, we can be in our whole being, our full selves, without compromising that and not expecting other people to do the same.
So
You wasn't
that was a mic drop moment. We're gonna wrap up on that point. I've never heard that, and I absolutely love it. Start dating yourself. Start treating yourself like you are in a new intimate relationship and it's day 1, 2, or 3. Think of all the excitement. Think about all the things that you bend over backwards to do for that new partner of yours. You should be doing that for yourself on a daily basis. So, Charmaine, that was amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you have enjoyed the show, please follow me. Please like me. Please share it. Please subscribe. Charmaine can be reached at charmainehurd.com. I can be reached at bradchandler.com. And remember, love heals all.
absolutely. This was amazing.
Thank you, Charmaine.